You're listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense with your host, Doug Thorpe. Here's Doug.
Well, hello again, everyone. It's Doug Thorpe, and this is another episode of Leadership Powered by Common Sense. Today, we're going to delve into the operations world. My guest is a gentleman who has spent some time in that space. He is an accomplished COO and has done it for in many ways. His name is Derek Fredrickson. Derek, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Doug. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, you're calling in from Paris. How long have you been in Paris, or is this just a temporary?
No, I've been here. I've been here 9 years. It'll be 9 years this summer in July.
Oh, my.
Yeah, it was. I won't give you the whole backstory, but it was one of those decisions we made to spend 1 year abroad, different culture, different experience, different country, and 1 year turned to two, and two is now turned into nine, and so France is home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder, are you in Paris proper or outlying?
Right in the middle center, very close to the Seine, near the museums, right in the heart of it. So it's enjoyable. It's 6 p.m. here, and it's finally not raining and warming up in the springtime. So it's very nice.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate you doing this. And I am curious, have you been able to assimilate the language?
It's a work in progress. It's one of those things that in the beginning, I think I was a bit overzealous. I underestimated my wife and I. My wife is half French, half American. When we moved, we have 3 small children who are much older now, 9 years older. But I think we underestimated how much it would take to move our family, to move our lives, to move our business, and everything that it took. And so I jumped into learning French. It was on the back burner. I've restarted again. I have a tutor twice a week. I go to a French language camp once a year for a couple of weeks just to fully immerse myself, because even though I've made a lot of good progress and I can speak the language pretty well, definitely not like the French can. So I still have a lot to learn and a lot to improve, but it's part of the process.
That's great. Well, again, thanks for sitting in here. So give us a little bit of the backstory of your career journey. Where'd you start out, and how did you get into what you're doing now?
Yeah, thank you. It's an interesting journey. I feel like I kind of defaulted into entrepreneurship. It wasn't something that I naturally was led to when I began my professional career. I started out in corporate on Wall Street back in the late 90s, early 2000s, doing project management and finance and everything else. I thought that was the career path for me. I enjoyed the work. It paid well, but I was missing that kind of fulfillment, that kind of mission of what I was doing. At the time, my wife was growing and scaling her business coaching company and getting a lot of financial satisfaction, but also kind of personal satisfaction and fulfillment from that. And so we made a conscious decision for me to step out of my corporate career right around the year of 2008. And if you remember what happened in 2008, there was quite an interesting scenario in the financial landscape. And then we partnered together. I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship. I didn't know anything about our business. I didn't know anything about business coaching, online marketing, none of that. But I brought what I knew about working with teams and managing projects and improving how we do what we do. And that really was the catalyst for us to be able to grow and scale our business coaching company together. It wasn't easy in the beginning because we had different strengths and different zones of genius, but I really over time realized she's the visionary. She's the one that's kind of external facing, and I can kind of make stuff happen behind the scenes, the one that's running the team, the operations, the marketing. So we did that successfully, and then I realized that I wanted to do that on a larger scale. So I kind of stepped out of the day-to-day of that business. It's still very successful, multiple 7 figures, self-managing as I describe it, et cetera. And I started to offer fractional COO, Chief Operating Officer, second in command, integrator services to other clients that came to me and said, they would tap me on the shoulder and they'd say, I need a Derek. I need somebody to do for my business what you have done for your wife's business. So I did that for a little while. I enjoyed that. And during that process, I was really getting clear on how do I do what I do when I work with a client? How do I use my framework to scale a multiple 7-figure business multiple times? And then as I perfected that process, I realized I couldn't scale when it was just me. So I launched the COO solution just last year. And now we serve mostly service-based entrepreneurs that are in that multiple 6 to multiple 7-figure sweet spot. And essentially what we do is we help run your business for you. Entrepreneurs, in my experience, are generally not wired to be the operator of their business, involved in the day-to-day, handling the team, the minutia, the problem solving. They're meant to be focused on the bigger picture, the bigger vision. And what we do is we provide that capacity to help lead and manage and hold accountable your company, your team, and operations so they can focus on the bigger vision. So that's a little bit of my journey.
Love it. I love it. And your closing observation there, I think, is spot on. The classic story of the founder entrepreneur is that they are generally more visionary. They know their idea, they know their passion that they're trying to bring to life, but they're picking up the implementer part and
Mm,
the delivery part as almost a side job or a second mind. And some do it well, but most, I think, struggle at some point trying to really make that happen. And
yeah.
when it gets into uh, of late on the show, I've had occasion. We've talked a lot about the various stages of growth of a company, and I know there are a lot of models out there. A lot of people have espoused different stories on how this is reflected. I tend to gravitate to the simple four-part model: the startup, grow up, scale up, and enterprise
Perfect.
version of the four. And the startup is kind of all hands on deck. Everybody's hair's on fire, and there aren't too many everybody's. They're
Yeah. Yeah.
typically it's a small team, but in the service arena that you spoke of, and I too am very familiar with that. You go from being Chuck in a truck up to several trucks and several
Yeah.
Chucks on the team, and
Yeah.
and now you've got a real business, and you got to start thinking about systems and procedures and what it is going to take to scale, because as we all know, if you don't have a system or a process, you can't scale.
Yeah.
You can't manage everything as a one-off event.
Yeah. I often say you can't scale complexity, but you
Right,
can scale simplicity.
right.
And in the beginning, like you said, in the beginning, as entrepreneurs, I mean, we're the jack of all trades, right? This is like I've got this idea, I've got this passion. I'll go and I'll do the marketing, I'll do the sales, I'll even try to figure out how to do my bookkeeping, or I'll try to figure out how to get my website. And you need that kind of roll up your sleeves, stick to itiveness in the beginning because you don't have the resources to build a team that bring on marketing and bring on sales. You have to kind of bootstrap it. But at a certain point, you realize that you need some support. And usually it's a gradual process. The way that I've experienced it with our clients is that you might start out and bring in somebody like a virtual assistant, somebody that can just free up some capacity, get some of the to-dos off your increasingly long to-do list, so you get some of your time back. And obviously, I'm sure, as you know, like the time that you get back, you can go and sit on the beach or take a nap, but you can get that time back for what you're outlaying for somebody to get some of the administrative day-to-day stuff done and reinvest that into a higher level activity for how you show up in your own business. But then at a certain point, in my experience, usually in, mid multiple six figures to multiple seven figures, it's less about the how and it's more about the who. It doesn't mean that just because you could do all of these things the way that you've done them in the past, or you could figure out how to get this stuff in place, doesn't mean that you should. And that's part of what we help with our clients, is getting them to realize that, I'm sure you've heard the expression, what got you here is not going to get you there. But it is a little bit of a mindset shift of actually doing less better. And it's not about being lazy. It's about doing less of the to-dos and the actions and all the stuff that needs to be kind of managed and reviewed and involved, and kind of focus on that bigger picture thing. So it is an evolution. I love your four tiers. It's very, very similar to the way I look at it.
Yeah. I'm thinking of so many scenarios and symptoms of that owner founder. I had a client once that I'm not going to name names, and I'm not going to give quite enough details to identify who it is. But if he's listening, he'll know what I'm talking about. I came on board, and he was pretty much buried in a lot of day-to-day activities, and on one hand was expressing, the frustration, saying essentially, I don't have a life.
Mm,
I'm so overwhelmed. If I don't keep pushing this pipe for what I've got, my part of the company that I'm doing, nothing's going to happen.
yeah,
And he had an assistant, but he was also expressing frustration that this assistant wasn't providing a lot of help. And the very long story short, and I went through several iterations with him of trying to figure out what the real root cause was, but we finally uncovered it. He hated training. He
Mm.
didn't want to train his person to learn how to do what he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was just something in his mind about the notion of teaching that was at the root of holding him back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this person he had, she actually was a talented and gifted resource, and she did the best she could do just watching him do what he did. And then she would say, "Hey, I think I can do that now.
Yeah.
Let me have some of that. If you've got 10
Yeah.
of those, let me have 5 of them,
Yeah. Yeah.
let me, and you can check my work." So she kind of stood up herself to say, "I can do more to help here." And little by little, he began gravitating that way, but I don't think he ever got out of his own way.
Yeah. It's, part of it is the awareness to the fact that maybe I do need to change, maybe not what I'm doing, but how I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's something that, every entrepreneur, there's no such thing as like nirvana when it comes to that. We're constantly in new level, new devil. And part of what we enjoy doing is helping the entrepreneur kind of get clear on what it is that they're like, with certain assessments. How are they wired? What are their strengths? What's their zone of genius? And realizing that, you want to have a team that feels empowered, that can take ownership, that has the feeling of more responsibility and accountability. Because then, like in that scenario, they're like, I can do more. Like, give me more. I'm here to help. I'm here to free you up. And when we create a culture in a company that allows those team members at any level to be able to do that, I think two things happen. One is that they feel like they can do things more efficiently, meaning they get stuff done quicker, right? What used to take months could now take weeks, theoretically. And then they do things more effectively. So they get things done in a bigger and better result. And I feel like, especially for teams, dialed in teams that are well aligned and like, what do we need to do? And how do I need to do it? And when do I need to do it by? And creating a system for accountability that really works in that. They thrive in that environment as opposed to like, I don't really know what to do. And I don't want to ask the boss. He's very busy or she's got a lot going on. So they kind of sit there feeling like, am I adding value? Am I really doing what I'm supposed to be doing? As opposed to a culture where like they're taking ownership, they're kind of taking the lead on things and they get excited about that because they feel like they're empowered.
Right. Right. And I acknowledge that's not an easy step change for an owner founder to do.
Mm.
It inevitably well, I'll go so far as to say inevitably it takes a little bit of a catastrophic event to make them realize they've got to do something. And when I say catastrophic, it's either a health event for the individual, the owner, or some other, major event in the business, some
Yeah.
big project that doesn't deliver properly or something.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, in some cases, you're right. But I think when it happens, and again, it doesn't happen all the time because there's that awareness. They have to have that click that says, okay, I need to change what I'm doing, or I need to change how I'm being. I need to be a different future version of the CEO. But what I've experienced is that when they start to, like a muscle, like they start to delegate, they start to outsource, get some support, starting small, and it snowballs. It kind of builds momentum. One, practically speaking, they get their time back, or they can see that it's quantifiably moving the needle forward in terms of results or traction or momentum, which is great. Like that's what you want. It's kind of like I can point a finger on it. It's real. I can touch it. But the other thing, more kind of psychologically, is that feeds back into the mindset of the business owner and it gives them their confidence back. And in that confidence, it allows them to say, okay, I've got my ship in order, right people, right seats, systems in place, processes for what we do. I can now go out and look at the bigger feature, the bigger vision. So when I come back and I bring, hey, there's this new idea, this new venture, a new partnership, or new program, you don't have a team that's like, whoa, we've got so much on our plate. We've got so many like fires that we're putting out, like we can't handle it. So the confidence of the entrepreneur is stifled because they don't have that infrastructure in place to support that. But when they know that that's in place and it can be scaled, then they can go out and focus on more of that and comes back, goes into the machine, kind of fuels back into the confidence. So there's that wheel of momentum, which is in some cases it gets them really excited and energized, and they feel like they can, see that bigger future for their company, which is, empowering. Like who doesn't want that as an entrepreneur? It's confidence is everything. So
Yeah, for some reason, everything you said there, which I totally agree with, I was thinking about a story. I was engaged to go to work for one client and more of just as a general advisor. and help them think about next steps and next growth opportunities. And the very first day I was in the office, I asked there were two owning partners. I asked one of the partners, I said, "What's your vision of this business? Where do you want it to go? What are you thinking?" And he goes, "I don't want to lose any money." I said, "What?" I said, "That's table
Yeah.
stakes. You know,
Yeah.
that's assumed." What? No, seriously, what's your vision? How big do you want this to be? What area do you want to get into? He said, "No, I'm serious. That's it. I just don't want to lose any money."
Wow.
And I kind of thought, "Uh-oh, this is not going to end well."
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, we're not blaming. This is not about judging. Everybody's on their own entrepreneurial journey, but I would call that sometimes like scarcity mindset, right? And
Yeah,
looking at like what's bad, what's going to happen, waiting for the other shoe to drop, as opposed to, and I'm not talking about being overly optimistic and not real in some cases, but we want to be positive. We want to be open-minded. We want to be able to kind of have the confidence that, it's going to move us forward. So, yeah.
right. Yeah, it's so interesting that. And the other thing that I'll point to, and I always reflect on this from my own days in banking, I watch client companies go through the four-stage evolution, and inevitably, usually the startup was fine, and it was the drive and sheer grit of the entrepreneur that made it be a success. They get to that grow up stage, they start getting some traction,
Mhm.
they start getting a market awareness and presence, and people want what they're doing. So everything's moving in the right direction. It's usually entering that third and potentially fourth stage where things start to get shaky because that owner founder is not reevaluating themselves. They
Mm,
might be reevaluating everything around them and making judgment calls about things, but the idea, for instance, of delegating authority,
yeah,
give somebody else on the team the authority to do X, Y,
right,
and Z.
right.
They just can't let go. They can't release it. It's my baby, it's my idea, and nobody knows it better than I
Yeah,
do. And
yeah,
you might go so far as again, and I agree with what you said. We're not trying to shame or blame anybody,
right.
but it's to me, I call it an undeniable truth. I watched hundreds of these businesses go this journey, and the aware owner founders who were willing to make the changes continued the progression of growth for
Sure.
their business
Yeah,
up
yeah,
to and including I need to hire a CEO or I need to hire
right.
a president.
Yeah. And
And
it's
I
sorry, I mean go ahead,
well
Doug.
and just simply take the position I'm fine being the founder visionary. I'm going to let somebody else run this for me.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of this is I mean, this could be a whole other topic in and of itself, but it's the mindset. It's the mindset of that entrepreneur and there's all of the things that are embodied in that in terms of how they see themselves, the fears of success, the fears of failure, the imposter syndrome, and who am I to be a multiple seven-figure business owner? And what if it doesn't work? And what if it does work? There's all these fears, doubts, and that are circling about. And I don't blame entrepreneurs that get to that kind of, new level, new devil, or that ceiling of complexity that are trying to break through to get to where they want to go in the relinquish of control or kind of passing the baton, if you will, especially at this type of level. It's different than you bring on a VA and just getting stuff done. But this is a strategic partner that is there to help, as I often say, run your business for you or with you. And that's not about taking control, it's giving you control back. And the number one thing that I've realized in my experience, which is why it's a huge value of ours in the work that we do, is that they have that trust. It's why I always say you have a trusted second in command, not just a COO that you're go ahead, run the ship, make the decisions, and do all the things. It's like, no, it's based on experience, it's based on results, it's based on credibility. And that trust needs to be cultivated. It's not something that you can just create overnight by, finding somebody on Fiverr or anything like that. It's got to be really cultivated and understanding what are their values, what are your goals, what is your vision, how can we partner together? This is not transaction, this is a collaboration, this is a partnership. So when that trust is in place, it allows them to feel like I can step out while things are rowing in the right direction, moving forward, onward and upward, but it's I always say it doesn't happen overnight, and it also takes a certain type of mindset shift in order to be clear that you need that trusted second in command support to help run your business essentially.
I like that call out. I think that trust word is the key to it. And you're absolutely right. I think if you're owning a business and you're feeling that pressure and tension right now to maybe bring on a COO or an
Hmm.
operator of some sort to free up your time, I think that trust factor is the root of it all. I think you're
Yeah,
spot on there.
yeah,
And you're right, it doesn't happen overnight. And odds are, if you're having to go to market to find the person, it's going to be a little bit of trial and error.
yeah,
It inevitably is that, and you can't avoid it. But
yeah, yeah.
nonetheless, it's a right strategic move to make.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this when working with clients, entrepreneurs, they don't know what they don't know about certain things in their business. And again, this is not an accusation. I'm suffering this a little bit now because I've been a COO for 17 years and here I am the CEO of my own business. So I'm sometimes having a little bit of a identity switch. Like I'm putting the COO hat on or the CEO hat off. And sometimes what they don't know about don't know about hiring and bringing on the right people for the right seats. They tend to attract more based on who they are and how they're wired and their personality. Like attracts like. And so they meet somebody like, I like you, you like me, we think the same way, we come up with the same ideas. I think you'd be a great addition to the team. And there's a place for that. But also at the same time, you need finishers, not necessarily more starters. Entrepreneurs are great at starting things. They have ideas a mile long, and we want that. We want them to be in that big ideation, but you need somebody that's going to land the plane. I often say the idea of or the goal of the visionary is to be that like they make it up. They have the idea. People like me, COOs, we make it real, we make it happen. And then with the right process and the right people, we make it recur. And so when they have somebody that's there to help make things real and make it happen, it gets them out of the day to day because before they may have a bunch of people that are like them where they're sharing ideas and throwing spaghetti at the wall and like we could do this, we could do that, but then like where's the plan? Right? Where's the execution? When's it going to be done? Who are we holding accountable? Not like a, kind of babysitting kind of a way, but in a way of like, we've got a big objective here and a big result that we want to accomplish. And let's align to make sure that we've got the right people in the right seats with the right responsibilities in order to move that forward. So it's a combination. You need those big idea generators and you need a lot of people that are wired to finish things, to implement things and make things happen.
Yeah. Well, let me shift gears a little bit. You're probably observing this or maybe even participating in it. There's a lot that's been written lately about the so-called Silver Tsunami, all the small businesses that are owned by largely the baby boomer generation. And some estimates are in the trillions of dollars of wealth that's got to get transferred in the next decade or so as these boomers choose to move out of the business,
Mm,
and maybe there is no next generation to take it over. So it's a question of, well, do I get to sell it and get a
hmm.
return, or do I just need to shut the doors? And I've had a chance to do some work in that space with those businesses being purchased and transferred. And there are some interesting phenomenon that I've observed, and I'll start with the number one is that when the buyer moves in and begins meeting with the team and taking over, I've encouraged those buyers to be very open and invite the team to talk about opportunity and ideas.
Mm, mm,
And it is no disparaging comment on the seller founder that is now
hmm.
exited, but those guys tend to get to a place in time they create what I call a lifestyle business for themselves. They've got a certain level of revenue. They've grown it up to a certain scale. They just don't want it to be any bigger because
Yeah,
they don't want any more headaches. They don't want
yeah.
any more challenges. It's clicking, it's successful, great customer ratings, all of that, but they just don't want to do anything new and different. But when the new buyer comes in, who is typically a younger person,
Hmm.
they're buying it with the hope that they can grow it and take
Yeah,
it to a
of
new
course.
level, maybe 2x or 3x. So one of the first gold mines is just to ask the people that are there, what do you think? Is there something
Yeah.
new and different we should be considering, or should we change a process or a
Yeah.
procedure? And I can honestly say, batting 1,000, every moment when we've opened that discussion up, we found absolute gold
Mm,
in those hills
I love
that
that.
just some simple little adjustments might go straight to the bottom line.
I love that. I love that. It's getting to the source of maybe what's a little bit under the surface that may not have the opportunity to creep
See the
through.
light of day.
Yeah, for whatever reason. And we do that oftentimes with some clients that we work with. And we don't, it's not about shaking the tree, right? And getting things to fall and asking questions. Why are you doing things this way? Why are you doing things that way? It's not about that. It's about taking something that's good and making it better. But in that process, it's asking some questions for those that are in the day-to-day of what's really going on. And like, this is what's really happening in marketing. This is what really is happening with sales, which is why X, Y, and Z result, whatever it be, good or bad. And I often call it like a feedback loop. What's working? What's not working? How do we do more of what's working? And how do we change and do better what's not working? And when you ask those that are in the trenches, the ones that are doing the things that are working or not working, it elevates their thought process and their strategic thinking to say, like, I have this idea about this, or we could be doing that. And I think giving them a forum to share that in the spirit of like rising tide lifts all boats, let's see what we can be doing collectively across the organization. It's very empowering. And so I love that exercise, especially in the context of a potential buyer coming in, looking to take something from here to there and wanting to see and have certainty that that exists, but also just in the spirit of getting the team to be more on board with the vision and where we're going and what their part is and how do they contribute to that. It's again, it's a great element of elevating their role and how they see themselves in it that can contribute to the bigger picture.
Well, what I coach buyers to do with their messaging to the company is, I'm coming in and I'm going to ask for ideas, not because I think something's wrong. I wouldn't have bought this if I thought something was wrong. I bought it because I see value. I see, and I honor the legacy that the founder created here. And you people I'm talking to, you're the reason it was successful.
Yeah.
And I'm simply asking if you've got any ideas that we maybe as a team could embrace and adopt. And I encourage buyers to do that early in the process of the transition integration, because that is a way to get immediate buy-in to who you are as the new owner.
Mm-hmm.
And you can come in speaking all these wonderful ideas and strong core value messages, which you should do. But the only way you're really going to get buy-in to that is to get the people engaged and get them engaged as quickly as possible. And I've found it's just an undeniable truth, just opening the door for that discussion about what are you wrestling with that you would like to see fixed or adjusted or added.
Or improved, or anything that allows them to
improved,
contribute
enhanced,
to the conversation. This is what I love about the idea of, and we're working with the clients, like a few clients now, where their objective or their vision is to exit. It is to sell, and then there are others where there is a family transition dynamic where there's a husband and wife, and they've been in it for quite some time, and their son's involved and his wife's involved. So there's a pretty significant family dynamic, which again could be a whole other podcast topic in and of itself. But what I like about, especially for those where we're looking at how do we do things to position the company for sale or for exit, and when we do all of that, the owner then has the choice to exit, to sale, or perhaps at that point, they're very much removed from so much of the day-to-day because there's been so much done in the spirit of exit or sale that maybe they don't have to, or they don't want to, and they can just be very, very fractionally involved, or very, very limitedly involved, if that's the right word, or limited in terms of their involvement. And that could be the model for them. But all of the work that needed to happen to get to that point is what is going to take to either sell, exit, have a very good thing that you can continue to build and not have to work at necessarily, and then maybe think about legacy in terms of other transition with family, whatever that might be. I'll give you a quick example. I remember this was years ago. We had somebody reach out to us that was like I don't know, venture capital company, and we had been the business coaching company that my wife and I own. We were on the Inc. 500 list for a couple of years, and so they reached out and said, have you thought about you need extra funding or VC money? No, I haven't, but I'll have the conversation just to see. And it was interesting. They said, well, there's a lot that's dependent upon the both of you, right? At the time, my wife was the face of the company. She was doing the outward marketing. And, of course, we had a team that did sales and coaching and everything else, but you can't scale that when it's just one person. And same with me. I was running so much of the day to day. I had teams, I had systems and processes, but it wasn't like a well-oiled machine fully. So there's a lot to get done. So we kind of changed our mindset about and just shifted things in the way of having it be less about us and more about the business and the clients and the results and the credibility. And then, we could if we want, but maybe we don't need to if we don't choose to, exit or anything else like that. So,
Yeah. No, it is. And I think inevitably, to your point, for those owners that are thinking about that exit strategy, it is important to do some things several years prior to the date that you want to put on the board, because chances are there are some opportunities to streamline some things, automate some things, set up process and procedure that you kind of have it in your head, but you don't really have it documented. You don't really have it implemented per se. And some of those things can actually yield greater returns for those last couple of years.
Yeah.
And if you can get a 2 to 3 year run rate history of improved earnings and performance, you get a better purchase price.
Of course. Yeah, for sure.
The value of the business goes up. And if you can make it just undeniably clear that it won't matter if you're there anymore, as hard as that sounds.
Yeah.
If you can prove that, ought to be part of your sales pitch.
Yeah.
This business runs without me. Let me show you how. And that becomes a premium by literally a couple of percentage points on the multiple.
Yeah. I mean, I think most entrepreneurs start their businesses because they are looking for some sort of freedom in some way, right? Maybe they just don't feel like they're aligned in corporate, or they want to do something that they have a passion for and a mission for. But I don't think they start that in the spirit of, I want to be tied to my business and working on it and in it all of the time. I love the expression where it's, we don't want a business where the tail wags the dog.
Right.
We want to be able to kind of be the one that is in control, and where are we going and what does it look like for their values. And so doing those types of things and asking those types of questions, whether it's of themselves, potential buyer, their team, getting really clear on what it's going to take to create what they want. That's really that's the question. So they don't feel like I'm tied to my business for indefinitely.
Well, and I think that's what's so important for people that are either thinking about becoming an entrepreneur or already are there. There's so much street lore, like I think it's Lori Grenier on the Shark Tank that says an entrepreneur is the only person in the world that'll quit a 40-hour job and take an 80-hour job.
Yeah, right. That's so true. Yeah.
And that's certainly true during the startup phase, but I think the point is your vision has to be bigger than that.
Yeah.
It has to be the vision that I'm going to get out of the 80-hour demand. I am going to create the freedom I want.
Yeah.
And I've almost gotten tired of the phrase, don't work in the business, but work on the business.
Right.
I don't know. I've just got something going on in my head about that phrase. Doesn't ring well for me anymore. It's been so overused and abused, maybe. But yet, at the core of it, that is exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, it is. And there's different ways you can spin it and call it what you want. But that is the crux of what we're talking about here, for sure.
Try to get people there. Well, Derek, I think this has been great, my friend. Is there anything you can think of that maybe we haven't touched on that we ought to share real quickly with folks out there?
No, I mean, I think what I loved about this conversation is that it was a little bit of like these practical and tactical, and also the mindset shifts. Like it happens on both ways, and I feel like there's one that isn't more important than the other at any point in time, but they're equally always at play. right? And so I think if anything, knowing that, yeah, there's the practical things, try to get your time back, delegate, outsource, cultivate a team, focus on your vision, but also it's the kind of mindset shifts about who you need to be in that process. I didn't make this phrase up, but I love that, entrepreneurship is the fastest path of personal growth and development because it will bring up all your stuff. And you have to address that in certain ways. And so whether you get coached or whether you get mentored or whether you look up the ladder and say, who's doing what I'm looking to do, and know that it's possible and having that confidence and conviction to do what's necessary to get the support. Yeah, I think it was an interesting conversation that blended the two together.
I like it. I think you summed it up well. So, Derek, tell folks the best way to get a hold of you if they're interested in knowing more.
Yeah, sure. The website is thecoosolution.com. You can see more about us there. There's some free resources. We've got a quiz that helps people understand, maybe is now the right time to think about bringing on a fractional COO. So there's an assessment that individuals can take there. And it's thecoosolution.com. So
awesome. Well, as always, folks, we'll have that link in the show notes. So feel free to hop down there if you want to talk to Derek and know more about his offerings and ideas. But we do have a video version of this show over on YouTube. I like to remind you about that. It is logged under the same name, Leadership Powered by Common Sense. Hop over there, check out our archive. This show might be close to number 400. I don't know. I'm not looking at my schedule right now.
Amazing.
But we're rapidly approaching that number, and we'll definitely hit it before year end. But looking forward to that milestone for our work here. But hey, I'd love to hear from you if you've got an idea for a guest or a topic that we haven't yet covered. Please, by all means, drop me a line. Let me know that. You can reach out to me on my website at dougthorpe.com. That's THORPE on the end.com. And leave me a note as well. Let me know what you'd like to do. But with that, I think we're pretty well wrapped up. I'm going to sign off, say goodbye. Go out there and make it a great day.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense, hosted by Doug Thorpe. If you would like to know more about the coaching and advisory services he provides, visit dougthorpe.com.